Now we come up on boat number 89, Kid Apache. This is a 45-foot Apache racing hull powered by three 900-horsepower Carolina racing engines with Mercury Marine No. 6 outdrives. This boat is owned by ALF Offshore Racing Limited. Driving today is Alan Feingold from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Randy Garcia from Miami, Florida is on throttles, and Kelly Wolf from Miami, Florida is your navigator. So Wolf, Garcia, and Feingold making up Kid Apache Kid. Ocean Outboard, the other Victory Team boat, as well as Spirit of Houston and Felson's High Risk, they're going at it, as well as Tough Enough is right up there in Pro 1. Pro 2, the other Victory boat, as well as Imagine That and Columbia Pepsi Express, Rush, how sweet it is, all still going at it. We've got some great racing, and there's an excellent head-on shot of the Kid Apache headed up by Alan Feingold, and this boat is looking exceptionally well, running very strong, and we wish them all the best as we're starting to draw to the closing stages of this race, the Suncoast Offshore 1992 Grand Prix in Sarasota, Florida. Right here, it's Alan Feingold in your picture in Kid Apache. Now we come up on boat number 96, In Excess. This is a 47-foot Apache racing hull powered by three 800-horsepower Carolina inboard motors with Mercruiser drives. This boat is owned and driven by Ted Sabarese. Throttling is Trace Martin from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And Rick Sabarese is your navigator. The In Excess race team. And they're chasing Kid Apache right now. So that we've got a good battle going on in Super V, Deep V racing hull style boat right there. In excess in second place, challenging Feingold's Kid Apache. Steele in the deep V section of the open class taking first place, followed by the Executioner taking second place in V bottom. And there is Apache Kid, who you saw earlier on, who took first place in the deep V bottom portion of the superboat class. In Pro 1 stock, Ocean Outboard took first place with an average speed of 74.65 miles per hour. Muller's at the helm. Kurt Berger smoking the Bandit right there in the middle of your picture. Now we come up on Tropic Heat's stiff competitor. It's D15, the Predator race team. There's a 41-foot Apache powered by two 800-horsepower Stotler inboard motors with Merc Cruiser outdrives. This boat is owned by Edward Toth of Sellersville, Pennsylvania. Throttling today is Herb Stotler from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Ed Toth obviously doing the driving. So Stotler and Toth making up the Predator race team, and they're looking very good right now. They're in a fierce battle with Tropic Heat, who we just saw earlier on. Is extremely poor, and as a result the race officials have made some drastic modifications, so much so that the factory class will not be running today and all classes will be running 2 less laps. So Superboat and Open, instead of 9 laps, will be doing 7 laps. Offshore D will be running 5. Modified will be doing 4. Pro Stock 1 will be doing 4. Sport B and Super Stock S will be running 3 laps, and the production will be running 3 laps. So that is the story. And right now you see the boats coming out of the milling area, and we're going to be going with a Superboat and Open start. We've got the green flag, and what a start we've got. Right there in your picture, it's the Kid Apache Kid. The Spirit of Norway is there. Predator is also in the picture. Cobra Marine is there. Tweedy Revenge is coming up strong. Extractor, Gifford Marine. We've got a good start. With the skyline of Ocean City, Maryland in the background, we're going to get the best possible race we can for you today. The weather, as I said, is really the key factor here, and as a result, it's going to make for some slower average speeds, obviously, but nonetheless, everyone is competing on a similar course and race conditions, so we are going to have some good racing. Right there in your picture, that's Extractor, with Jim Lausnowski at the helm. And that's Gifford Marine coming up alongside Extractor. Spirit of Norway is looking nice, and Budweiser is also moving right along. Ohio Steel is going to be in the hunt. Gifford Racing is looking good, as well as Kitana. And there's Recovery with Stuart Haim and Joey and Pressure from New York coming down to this race. And now we're going to go with our first boat today. It's boat number 89, Kid Apache Kid. This is a 45-foot Apache racing hull powered by three 1,000 horsepower CNG engines with Merc Cruiser outdrives. This boat is owned and driven by Alan Feingold of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. On throttles, he's got Jerry Davis from Philadelphia, and from Voorhees, New Jersey, your navigator is Bobby Horn. So Feingold, Davis, and Horn making up the Kid Apache race team. Presently, they're second in points in the OPT Superboat V-bottom class, so they'd really like to have a good race here today. There you get an idea of Jerry Davis doing the job that he needs to do on the throttles. They're really going to get a workout today, all throttle men. Now we come up on D15, the Predator race team. There's a 41-foot yellow Apache powered by two 800-horsepower Stotler inboard motors with Merc Cruiser outdrives. This boat is owned by Edward Toth of Sellersville, Pennsylvania. Throttling today is Herb Stotler from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Eddie Toth Jr. from Sellersville, Pennsylvania is your navigator. And there you see Katana coming back up in the background. And riding today with this crew is Edward Toth, who's just along for the ride as your navigator and helping out. This boat has a very good 1992 campaign record behind it. They have a second already in national point standings. They had a second in Point Pleasant, a seventh in Lake St. Clair, and they're looking to build on that and extend their lead over the third and fourth place boats, but close the gap between themselves and the first place boat. Revenge. This is a 47-foot Apache powered by three 1100 horsepower CNG motors with Merc Cruiser outdrives. This boat is owned by Dan Morris of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Driving today is Randy Garcia from Miami, Florida. On throttles, it's Larry Goldman from Hollywood, Florida. And your navigator is Richard Schumann. So the team of Schumann, Goldman, and Garcia making up the Tweet Revenge race team. And on the far outside, that is the Spirit of Norway. However, those are different class boats. The superboat boat being Tweet Revenge and your open boat Spirit of Norway. But nonetheless, these are two of your fastest boats out on the race course, and it's certainly appropriate to see these two boats running up in front. Boat number 33, the Mean Streak race team. This 41-foot Apache, known as Mean Streak, is powered by CNG Cobra motors. This boat is owned and operated by Bob Gallo, throttled by Bob Cicente, owner of many world and national titles,